You're standing over the ball. You take the club back. And right when it matters most, your body just quits on you. Your hips lock up. Your arms take over. You flip the club at the ball like you're swatting a fly off a table, and the shot leaks right, or you dig up half the turf behind it. Here's what nobody at the range will tell you. The reason you can't rotate through the ball is not your swing, it's that your body is physically trapped in a position it cannot turn out of. You are trying to spin around a post that's leaning the wrong way, and no amount of turn your shoulders is going to fix a problem that starts in your feet and your hips. This is a feel that a working golf professional described in 1942 in a small book most players today have never opened. Then it got buried. Buried under launch monitors, buried under swing positions, buried under 1,000 tips that treat your body like a machine instead of a living thing that has to move from the ground up. I found that book. I tested what's inside it, and I want to show you the exact reason your rotation stalls and the forgotten fix that needs nothing but your own 2 feet and about 10 minutes on your living room floor. I remember the first time I felt it go wrong. I was on a cold driving range mat in early spring, hitting into a net, watching my own reflection in the pro shop window, and I could see it plain as day. My upper body spun, but from the waist down I was frozen solid, like my shoes were nailed to the ground. I thought I was doing everything the videos told me. I was doing all of it, and I still couldn't get through the ball. So let me start with the lie that kept me stuck for years, because I promise you have heard it too. Everybody tells you golf rotation is about turning your shoulders. Make a big shoulder turn! Get your back to the target, clear your upper body. That's the whole conversation. And it sounds right, so you nod along and you try harder, and you turn your shoulders more and more, and the ball keeps going nowhere. But rotation in a golf swing does not start in your shoulders. It never did. Your shoulders are the last thing to move, not the first. The engine of rotation sits down in your pelvis and your feet, and if that engine is jammed, turning your shoulders harder just winds your spine up like a wet towel with nowhere to go. Think about it for a second. When you throw a ball, you don't start with your arm. You step, you push off the ground, your hips fire, and the arm comes along for the ride at the very end. When you skip a stone across a pond, same thing. The power moves from the ground up through your body like a wave. Golf is no different. It was never any different. But somewhere along the way, we stopped teaching the wave and started teaching the pose. Back in 1942, an Englishman named Percy Boomer wrote a book called On Learning Golf. Boomer was a teaching professional in France, at a club near Paris, and he taught hundreds of ordinary players, not tour stars. And he said something that stopped me cold when I read it. He said most golfers try to hit the ball with their hands and arms because they never learned to feel the swing in their body. He said you should feel as if you are turning inside a barrel. A barrel. Picture standing inside a wooden barrel that comes up to your hips, snug against you on both sides. You can turn inside it. But you cannot sway side to side because the walls of the barrel stop you. That single picture, from a man teaching almost 100 years ago, explains why your rotation dies before it starts. Because here's the thing, most amateurs, myself included for a long time, don't rotate at all. We sway. We slide back on the takeaway, and we slide forward coming down, and sliding feels like moving, so we think we're doing something. But sliding is not turning, and once you've slid past the ball, your body has to stop the slide before it can do anything else, and that stopping is the exact moment your hips freeze and your arms take over. So already you can feel the first layer of this. You're not failing to rotate because you're weak or old or inflexible. You're failing to rotate because you're sliding when you should be turning, and nobody drew you the barrel. But the barrel is only the picture. It tells you what the motion should feel like. It doesn't tell you why your body refuses to do it. And that's where this gets a lot more interesting, because the deeper I dug, the more I realized the real trap is happening in a place you can't even see. Let me show you what I mean. Go stand up right now if you can. Get into your golf posture, hands out in front like you're holding a club. Weight even. Now make your backswing turn and freeze at the top. Look down at your back foot, your trail foot, the right foot for a right-handed player. I want you to notice where your weight is sitting. For most people, when they make that turn, their weight rolls to the outside of that back foot. The hip slides out over the foot, past it even, and now you are leaning away from the target with your weight stacked on the outside edge of your shoe. And here is the cruel part. From that position, it is physically impossible to rotate through the ball with any speed. You have parked your whole body on the one spot that blocks the turn. Because to rotate through, your pelvis has to clear. It has to turn open toward the target and get out of the way so your arms and the club can whip through the space where your body used to be. But if your weight is hanging back on the outside of your trail foot, your pelvis has nowhere to go. It's pinned. So your brain, which is smart and wants to save the shot, does the only thing left. It fires your arms and hands to try to square the club, and you flip and you scoop, and you lose all your power and all your consistency in one desperate little flick. This is not a swing flaw. This is your body doing the smartest thing available to it from a position that was doomed before you ever started down. Now, this is where I started getting a little angry, and I think you will too once you see it. Because the fix for this was studied, measured, and written down, and yet the whole modern teaching world keeps you staring at the wrong end of your swing. There is a whole field of research called ground reaction force study. Scientists put golfers on force plates, which are basically high-tech scales built into the ground that measure exactly how you push against the earth. And what they found is that good ball strikers do something specific with their feet that most amateurs never do. They push down and forward into the ground with their lead foot, and they use that push to spin. The great players generate vertical force against the ground worth more than their own body weight. They are not swinging their arms harder. They are pressing into the planet and letting the planet turn them. And the average golfer? On those same plates, the amateur is measured hanging back, pressure stuck on the trail, foot deep into the downswing, pushing at the wrong time in the wrong direction. Same body, same muscles, completely different relationship with the ground. So why has almost nobody handed you this? Why did I have to dig through a book from 1942 and a stack of biomechanics papers to find something this basic about my own body? Here's where it gets uncomfortable. Somewhere along the line, teaching golf stopped being about feel and started being about positions. And positions sell. A position can be photographed. A position can be drawn on a screen with lines and angles. A position gives an instructor something to point at for the next lesson, and the next one, and the one after that. There is an entire industry built on selling you the shape of a swing frozen in a single frame, because a frozen frame is something you'll pay to keep chasing. But you do not swing in frozen frames. You swing in motion, from the ground up, in real time, and no photograph of a tour player at the top of his backswing will ever teach your feet how to press. The feel got quietly abandoned because you cannot sell a man the same feeling twice. Once you own the feel, you're done paying. And someone, somewhere, would much rather you keep coming back to chase the pose. Percy Boomer understood this in 1942. He wrote, in plain words, that golf had already started drowning in technical instruction that confused players instead of freeing them. Almost 100 years ago he saw it coming, and he was right. Now, I know what some of you are thinking right about now. You're thinking this is fine for younger players, or flexible players, or people who can still touch their toes. But not for you. You've got a bad back. You've got tight hips. You're past 60 and your turning days are behind you. This next part is built for you specifically, because I promise the thing stopping your rotation is smaller and more fixable than you believe, and you do not need to be an athlete to fix it. Here's the hidden piece almost nobody checks. Your ability to rotate through the ball depends heavily on something called hip internal rotation. That's the ability of your thigh bone to turn inward in the hip socket. And here's the quiet truth about it. Most adults, especially those of us who sit a lot, have lost a huge chunk of this motion without ever knowing it. You cannot feel it missing in daily life, because walking and sitting don't ask for it. But the golf swing demands it, and when it's gone, your pelvis simply cannot complete the turn. Your body hits an invisible wall, and it stops, and you flip. Let me give you a test you can do right now, sitting in the chair you're probably in. This costs nothing. It needs no clubs. Sit up tall, knees together, feet flat on the floor. Now, keeping your knees together, let your feet fall apart to the sides, out and away from each other, while your knees stay pinned together. That outward sweep of your lower leg is your hip internal rotation. Do it on both sides and compare. Most people find one side moves noticeably less than the other, and for a right-handed golfer, if your right hip won't rotate inward, you cannot load properly, and if your left won't, you cannot clear through. Before I give you the second at-home piece, I want to stop for one honest minute, because everything I've just shown you is only the beginning of what that little book and those force plates revealed. You've been standing over that ball, feet trying to remember a motion nobody ever showed them, guessing your way through the very move that decides every shot. I got tired of guessing, so I put the whole thing in order, front to back, and it became the complete swing system. First swing walks you through grip, posture, and setup, the foundation 90% of beginners skip, and it teaches you to read your own miss, so you can diagnose exactly what went wrong on every shot. Deep swing takes you into the hip sequencing drills that actually transfer to the course, and it lays out the right elbow variable, golf's most misunderstood downswing move. All three volumes together are the complete road, from your first setup to fixing every major swing flaw. And you don't have to take my word tonight. Do the chair test I gave you a minute ago, both sides, knees together, feet falling apart, and feel for yourself which hip has quietly rusted shut, because that free 60-second check is the exact kind of diagnosis these books are built on. The fastest way to get the books is to scan the QR code right there on your screen, or go to the link in the description or the pinned comment. Your hips lose that internal rotation a little more with every year you sit, so the sooner you start feeding the motion back in, the more of it you keep. And in a moment I'll hand you the second at-home drill, the one that trains your feet to press into the ground and start the downswing from the floor up, no ball required. So let me give you the second at-home piece, the one that trains this pressure shift without a single ball, because I know some of you can't get to a range easily, and I don't want that to stop you. I did this test at my own kitchen table, and I nearly fell out of the chair when I saw the difference between my two sides. One leg swung out easy, the other barely moved, and I had been blaming my swing for years, blaming my tempo, blaming my hands, when the real answer was that one hip had quietly rusted shut from decades of sitting at a desk. So here's what you do about it, and again, no equipment, no floor work if your knees are bad, right there in the chair. Same position, knees together, and gently sweep the feet apart and back together, slow and easy, 10 or 12 times each side. You're teaching the joint to remember a motion it forgot. Then, if you can get on the floor, sit with your legs in front, lean back on your hands, and let your knees drop side to side like windshield wipers, slow, controlled, feeling the hips turn in each direction. 2 minutes a day. That's it. Within a couple of weeks of doing this, I felt something in my swing I had honestly never felt before. My hips could actually turn through instead of jamming. The wall was gone, and it cost me nothing but the willingness to believe the problem was in my body, not in some secret move I hadn't learned yet. But mobility is only half the story, because you can have all the hip motion in the world and still hang back and flip if you never learn where to send your weight. And this is the part that took me the longest to understand, because it goes against everything that feels natural. When you start your downswing, every instinct in your body wants to throw the club at the ball with your arms and shoulders from the top. It feels powerful. It feels like effort. And it is exactly wrong. The players who rotate cleanly through the ball start the downswing from the ground, with a subtle pressure shift into the lead foot, before the club ever really moves. Their lower body begins clearing while the club is still going back or barely starting down. It looks almost lazy up top and violent down low, which is the complete opposite of what most of us do, which is violent up top and dead down low. Percy Boomer had a phrase for this too. He talked about the feeling of your feet being planted and your body turning against that anchor, so the ground is always feeding energy back into the turn. He couldn't measure it in 1942 the way a force plate measures it today, but he felt it, and he taught it, and he was describing the exact same thing those scientists confirmed decades later with electronic equipment. The man knew with his hands and his eyes what took the rest of the world 70 years and a laboratory to prove. That's what really got under my skin. The knowledge was never lost because it was wrong. It was lost because it was simple, and simple doesn't sell lessons. Stand up, feet about shoulder width, no club needed, or hold a broom if you want something in your hands. Get into your posture. Now, very slowly rehearse this. Make a small turn back, and as you do, feel your weight settle into the inside of your trail foot, not the outside edge, the inside, like you're pressing the arch down. That inside pressure is the wall of Boomer's barrel. It stops the slide. Then, to come through, press down into your lead foot and let that pressure turn your belt buckle toward the target. Don't move your arms at all. Just let your feet and your hips do the whole thing. Back and through, slow motion, feeling the pressure roll from the inside of one foot to the ground under the other. Do that 20 times a day in your kitchen, and something remarkable happens. Your body stops asking your arms to save the shot, because your lower body finally knows its job. The flip disappears on its own, not because you tried to stop it, but because the reason for it is gone. Now I want to go back to that trail foot for a minute, because there's one more layer here, and it's the one that finally made everything click for me. Remember how I said most amateurs hang back on the outside of the trail foot? There's a reason your body does that, and it's not laziness. It's fear. Deep down, your body does not trust that you'll get back to the ball, so it holds on to the back foot like a safety rope. It stays back to keep from falling forward, and every tip that tells you to shift your weight fails, because you can't logic your way out of a fear response. You have to give the body a reason to feel safe moving forward. That reason is the ground. When you learn to press into the lead foot and feel the ground push back, your body suddenly has something solid to move toward. It's no longer falling forward into empty space. It's pressing into a floor that holds it. And the instant your body trusts that floor, it lets go of the back foot, and the rotation you've been chasing for years just happens. Not because you forced it, because you finally stopped needing the safety rope. I want to say something about the people who kept this alive, because they matter. When the whole world went chasing positions and camera angles, there were still a handful of old teachers, guys who learned the game before television, who kept teaching the ground and the barrel and the feel. They got called old-fashioned. They got passed over for the flashy instructors with the fancy screens. But they held the line. They kept telling anyone who'd listen that golf is a motion, not a pose, and that power comes up out of the earth, not out of your shoulders. Percy Boomer was one of them, and his little book from 1942 survived. It got quietly passed hand to hand by players who figured out that the newest tip is rarely the truest one, and the biomechanics researchers, decades later, without even meaning to, proved that the old man in France had it right all along. The feel he taught by hand matched the force the machines measured. Two roads 70 years apart, arriving at the exact same place. So here is the finale, the thing I promised you, and I want to give it to you exactly the way it finally worked for me, because this is the whole secret, in one simple sequence you can start this week. It comes straight out of Boomer's barrel and gets confirmed by every force plate ever built. Ready. First, you set up and you imagine the barrel around your hips, snug on both sides. You are allowed to turn. You are not allowed to sway. That single thought kills the slide before it starts. Second, on the way back, you feel your weight go to the inside of your trail foot, pressing the arch toward the ground, never letting it roll to the outer edge. That inside pressure is the wall. It loads you without letting you drift off the ball. Third, and this is the piece almost nobody does, you start down from the ground, not the top. Before your hands come down, you press into your lead foot and let that pressure open your pelvis toward the target. The club is still finishing its trip back while your lower body has already begun to turn through. It feels backward. It feels like your bottom half is early. That feeling is correct. That feeling is the whole thing. Fourth, you let the turn clear, your lead hip up and back, out of the way. so your arms have an open road to swing down and through the space your body just vacated. You are not spinning in place. You are turning inside the barrel while pressing into the floor, and the floor is turning you. That's it. That is the forgotten method. A barrel, an inside foot wall, a ground-up start, and a hip that clears. No launch monitor. No $1,000 lesson package. No new driver. Just the way the human body was always meant to move, described by a teaching pro in France in 1942, buried under decades of positions and poses, and proven right by science that arrived 70 years too late to give him the credit. And when I put those 4 pieces together on that same cold range where I'd frozen up 100 times, the ball came off the face with a sound I'd been chasing for a decade. Compressed, solid, effortless. My arms weren't trying to save anything, because my body finally knew its job. I wasn't stuck on my back foot anymore, because the ground was holding me up. Let me leave you with the part that matters most, because it isn't really about golf. You spent years being told the answer was some position you hadn't mastered yet, some move too subtle to feel, something you'd need to keep paying to chase. And the truth was, sitting in a small book from 1942 the whole time, telling you the answer lived in your own feet and your own hips and the ground under your shoes. That's not a golf lesson. That's what happens when simple, honest knowledge gets buried, because nobody can sell it to you twice. If you're the kind of person who suspects the most useful things have been quietly hidden behind a paywall of jargon and gadgets, then you already understand what this channel is really about. It's about taking back the knowledge that was always meant to be yours. Now I want to hear from you, and I want a specific answer, not a general one. Do that chair test I gave you, the one where you keep your knees together and let your feet fall apart, and tell me in the comments which hip was tighter, your left or your right. Just type the side, left or right. I read them, and I promise the pattern that shows up is going to surprise every single person who leaves one. And if you want more of these, the forgotten feels and buried methods that the modern golf machine quietly threw away, stay with me, because the next thing I'm digging into is even stranger. It's an old teaching trick about your trail arm that a player from the 1920s swore was the real secret to effortless speed. And when I tested it, I understood why nobody teaching lessons today wants you to know it. That one's coming, and once you feel it, you won't be able to unfeel it. This video showed you why your rotation stalls. But the full barrel drill, step by step, the way Boomer taught it, that lives inside the Old Ways Almanac. In there, you can ask me your own question, and I answer you, myself, a real person. And you won't be alone. Folks just like you are already inside. Point your phone's camera at the code on the screen and cancel anytime, one click, no risk. Now that you understand why your rotation gets stuck, let me show you the very first move that should start your downswing. Get this right and everything flows easier. It's ready for you right here.